Hello and welcome to ClockTower Game Studios. Today we're going to be talking about washing models for mini painting. And by washing, I don't mean necessarily the preparation step of washing any mold release off of your resin or plastic, well, really any models. I'm talking about a way to shade and in some cases even sort of paint models using very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very liquidy, very runny paint, whereas normally you want your paint to be the consistency of almost like a milky substance. A wash you want to be more of a more almost towards water. You want it to really flow. So this model is a Bombshell's Miniatures Edofleini. They're from their game Counterblast, and they are alien octopi invading the galaxy. They're really cool models. I like that they're very unique. There's not a lot of this sort of pulp sci-fi stuff available in the miniature market. And here you can see I've just got some Army Painter soft tone, and I've got a very thick soft brush that'll hold a lot of water, hold a lot of fluid. And you can see the stuff is really liquid, or really liquidy. It's really runny, and it really clings into the recesses of the model. So this, I'm doing a pre-shade. This model I'm planning to paint with glazes, which will be discussed further in another video. So this step, I've got the model primed, and now I'm giving it a really heavy wash, and that'll help darken in all the recesses so that the glazing that I do later, it's already pre-shaded. So like I said, I'll describe that process more in another video, but here you can see I'm really just slathering it on. It's going on in one thick coat, and I'm going back and making sure that it's not pooling too much, but you can see that I'm making sure that it's really in the recesses, that it's really darkening any of the low spots in the model down. And I'm just making sure I get the entire model. So as that dries, it's going to darken down that gray primer, and it's going to leave some very nice shading in the deep recesses. As you can see, it did exactly that. The gray is a very brown toned now, and all those nice deep recesses, especially around the eyes, are shadowed in like we want. Next up, we're going to do a Games Workshop Primaris Marine. And as you can see, I've got it painted up a golden blue color. This is the color scheme of one of my recent favorite chapters, the Celestial Lions. And as it turns out, this is a great paint scheme to demonstrate this sort of technique on, because I've already got the model base coated. All I'm doing with this shade, the Null Oil from Citadel, is I'm going in and just giving it a really thick coat again, and then I'm going back over it to make sure it doesn't pool and leave what are called tide marks, which as they dry, those pools will kind of evaporate, but they'll leave a really dark ring around the outside edge of them. But once those are cleaned up, the point of this is that that paint settles into all the recesses and cracks just like it did on the Edofleini model. But on the Space Marines armor, it's very important because most of these surfaces are very smooth, very flat. They're kind of two-dimensional. You don't really get any depth out of the model with them unless you do this sort of a step to darken back in those panel lines and the deep recesses. So that's what I'm doing here. And also it has the added benefit on this metallic. Null Oil has almost an oily finish, so it'll darken it in and it'll give it kind of a bit of mechanical grime almost kind of effect. And I'm using the same wash on the shoulders and on the head, despite their being blue. They're very vibrant, lively blue, which I like the contrast, but I don't want it to be overwhelming and cartoony. So putting this back on there will add a nice bit of shading to it, and will also serve to tone those bright, vibrant blues down a little bit. As you can see, I'm doing kind of the same thing I did in the first scene, where I'm just going over this real heavily. It's just serving a little bit different purpose with this model, and that's the point I'm trying to demonstrate, is washing like this can serve a couple different purposes. So this is the second one, where it's toning down an undercoat and shading it after you've painted. Now I'm going to have to go back over this later and do some highlights to bring out some of the edges and to add some detail. I still need to do the eyes and some small details like that, but this model otherwise, it's pretty well finished. Sorry for the bad still shot there, but as you can see, that did a great job, and especially around the shoulder plates and the face, like I said. And now, using this Anvil Industries Daughters of the Burning Rose model, I'm going to demonstrate the third and final way that I use washes. Now this is a Citadel Seraphim Sepia, which is a lovely reddish orange brown. And this technique is actually, basically I'm painting the model. I'm going to go back over it and highlight it and add some edge highlighting to kind of bring it out and give it a little more of the tone I want. But for the most part, this step is what gives it the color and the warmth that I want it to have. Now, this ends up being almost a bone color, but the undercoat, I'm just taking pure white and I'm just really heavily over the top of that, washing it with this sepia. And that's going to, it's not going to darken it down as much as like the soft tone or the Nuln Oil would, but it's going to give it some warmth. It's going to bring out all those fine details and depth of the armor on her, and it's really going to just help basically paint the model. It's going to do 90% of the work for me. After this, I'll come back over it and dry brush it, which dry brushing is going to be the next hobby video we do for mini painting. It's the next step in the series. But as you can see, this is already starting to give it that warmth, give it a nice brownish orange color, just the way I want it. Now I'm only doing her armor, and as you can see, I'm using a smaller brush here, and that's because I'm trying to be a little more accurate. I'm not just covering the entire model. I'm leaving the face and the hair, the sidearm. I'm just getting the armor plates this time. I'm just getting the areas I want, and so that requires a smaller brush. And there you can see after it dries, it's actually already well on its way to having the bone color that I wanted it to have, and I'm very happy with that. I know this is a fairly basic video, just covered one step in the painting process, and it just sort of demonstrated the concept behind using washes, but hopefully it's still useful. I know not everybody that watches these videos has been painting for very long, so that's my goal with some of these hobby related videos, is to be educational and help get down some of the core concepts. I've already done basing in a previous video, and coming up next we've got dry brushing, and then I think I'm going to tackle glazing, and then finally painting eyes. That's what's up next in the hobby series. And of course on Thursdays we're doing the terrain building videos, and coming up on this Thursday I'll be discussing the planning and construction of the first floor of the Koban, the Japanese inspired police station I'm doing for my Neo Nagoya build. So if you want to see those videos as they're coming out, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button so you'll get all the updates every time we post something. If you want to keep up with more regular updates, like daily basis stuff, follow us on Instagram, where I post daily update pictures of what we're doing. Also, you can follow us on Twitter for kind of live tweeting whenever we're actually doing some heavy lifting, so to speak. And then, of course, you can follow us on Facebook for big announcements and to keep up with all the latest news. You'll find links to all those social media outlets in the description below. And if you'd like to support us, you can always check us out on Patreon. We have a couple different tiers of support there. You can also use Buy Me a Coffee to tip us. Of course, coffee is always appreciated, helps fuel the whole show. And of course, you can also follow our Amazon affiliate links, which I'll have in the description below, to the products used in this video. That's a way you can support the company at no cost to yourself. Each time you purchase something using one of our affiliate links, we get a little bit of a kickback, and it's at no additional charge to you. So it's a good way to support us while shopping for things you were already getting anyway. And last but not least, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Anvil Industries and Bombshell Miniatures for letting us use their amazing products. Links to both companies' web stores will be shown in the description below as well. Which brings us to the end of the video. So remember folks, be kind to each other, help take care of one another, and remember, the Clock Tower, it's always game time.